Welcome back to Big Fish in the Middle Kingdom, part of the Migration Media Network. I'm Brendan Davis, your host, and this week's guest is BART BAGGETT. Now, BART needs no introduction to some of you. BART is an author and a motivational speaker. He's also a handwriting expert. He has appeared in media several thousand times, I believe it is officially 1,600 media appearances and interviews. He has been in the marketing game a long time, and he has a lot of interesting things to say. Here, we do a fun exercise where he analyzes my horrible handwriting. It's pretty atrocious. It looks like a schizophrenic's ransom note. If you see me write with the pen, it's not pretty. And there's something we referenced throughout the interview, so let me tell you right now what's up. We shot this with 2 cameras. He was nice enough on this trip to Beijing. He brought 2 video cameras, and we took some time and some care to set this up and do a 2-camera shoot. And frankly, I don't have time to edit it right now and do justice to it. So I'm releasing this as just a normal podcast, but there will be a added value special feature that I put out of a kind of edited down video version of this at some point. I can't promise when exactly because I'm super freaking busy and I want to do a good job if I do anything like this. So why am I super busy? Well, guess why I'm super busy? Because this week's show is brought to you by How China Works, my new podcast with the one and only Ying Li. If you don't know her, you need to know her. You need to check out our show. I'm getting ramped up. Bart's inspired me. I'm in pitch mode, damn it. Listen to our show. Go to howchinaworkspodcast.com to check out all the awesomeness. It is a fun, friendly, and focused hot take on China, but it's well researched. There are personal anecdotes. There are things to help you, tips and tricks and tidbits to help you navigate China stuff. And I am really excited about this show, sincerely, without being kind of as goofy for a second. Ingy and I are just putting so much into this, and I'm really proud to be working with her. I'm really excited by what we are creating here, and the response has been really great. It's actually immodest if I quote it. It's so good. So please check out howchinaworkspodcast.com. You can find all the places to check out the show. You can hear what other people are saying about the show, which is really, really flattering. And I hope you like it. And there's even a place to leave us comments and suggestions and feedback if you have other shows you want to hear. But for now, please enjoy the interview with BART BAGGETT. So I'm here with BART BAGGETT. Bart, it's so great to see you here in Beijing, man.
Man, I am so happy to be here, and I'm even twice excited that you live here and that you invited me on your show, and I actually have a friend here that speaks English.
It's pretty crazy, and I will have set this up, as I mentioned to you off mic a little bit in the intro, but give us the short version for people who don't know you yet of who you are, where you're from, and what brought you to China.
Wow, that's a big, long question. But my name is Bart BAGGETT. I have written 7 books, Success Seekers, The Rich and Happy, and The Magic Question. Those are my new ones. I'm sort of like a smaller Tony Robbins with smaller teeth. Okay. So I teach self-help. I teach people how to live happier. We have a coaching community. We have trainers in India, in South Africa and Australia, all over the world. People basically get certified as kind of a life design coach or a handwriting analyst, and they all go through my school. So for like 20 years, we've been teaching personal development and teaching you how to make a living in personal development. So that's kind of the short version of a 20-year career in the publishing business. Right. Why I'm in China is I came to be the keynote speaker at the Beijing Handwriting Analysis Summit, which you're thinking, I didn't know they had a handwriting analysis summit. Until last year.
Until you told me the other day.
I didn't know that they did handwriting analysis in Chinese letters. I mean, obviously in other countries of the alphabets they do.
Wow, yeah.
But, my training has been all the Latin-based form, and we have handwritinguniversity.com, like the biggest school in the world. But there's a fascinating 500 or 600 community of people that love to get character and personality and forensics, because I know people get killed in China, just like they do everywhere in the world. And when you have murders and you have forgeries, you need a forensic expert. And both of these sciences are kind of intertwined. And so part of my speech was about the differences between forensics and crime versus the psychology of what they call graphology. Both of them are very valid, but they're very, very different. So they had me do the keynote speech. I'm really thrilled to be here. I'm having me meet a couple of publishers to get publishing. And, I like traveling the world. I've been traveling to 12 countries this year.
Wow.
And it's been great because I've got distributors and I've got partners in all these different countries. So it's really been a lot of work in the last 20 years developing sort of a brand for yourself. But I get the luxury of traveling the world and helping people.
Well, and this is so funny because, again, discussed how funny, what a small world it really is. Because we have crossed paths several times in LA, and we won't get into the whole backstory, but we have like other groups of friends in circles. They're concentric circles of people we know or have run with or whatever over the last, we won't say maybe how long, but a while. Well, we won't date ourselves, but we have all these interlocking circles of people for like 20 years, basically.
At least 20 years. But if you live in LA, and you lived in LA for a while and still do, and you're partially in the film or television business, you run into...
I'm at least partially in it.
You run in circles of people that actually do stuff.
Exactly.
Like, it's a big world, but when you get to people that are actually making films, they're doing stuff, they're shooting commercials, you're doing film festivals, you run into each other.
Exactly.
And so when I sent you an email, I'm like, hey, here's a podcast. You're like, dude, I know you.
That's right.
And I'm like, I'm kind of embarrassed.
Well, I wasn't going to out you, but...
I was just researching coming to Beijing.
Right,
I mean, what's the odds of someone I'm at a film festival and hung out with 10 years later living in China? It just never crossed my mind. If I was doing a film festival here, or if I was in a film here, it makes sense.
It might have popped
looking
up.
for like
exactly.
But yeah, so I did 16 films as an actor, produced some stuff, but my main business has always been self-improvement. But on my bucket list, I wanted to do stand-up comedy. I wanted to act in Hollywood movies. I wanted to swim with sharks. I want to go to the Himalaya. Like, I wanted to do all this stuff, and by God, I've done a lot of it. And
That's
I'm
pretty great.
Really blessed. Worked really hard, but I feel like I'm blessed and lucky and appreciative.
Well, it's really great to have you here, and your specific skill sets, of course, there are many, but some of the primary ones for you, your core, is something that is needed here, I think, and it's something that a lot of people sort of try to do, marketing things, self-improvement things, writing books to try to create businesses yourself. And China is interesting because it's such an entrepreneurial culture. And then you have the people like me who are, the expats who are moving here to do different things. Many of us are here doing some kind of business, but translating between Western cultural norms and business norms and China is really hard. So that's kind of become my specialty. And I'm excited that you're coming into China because, you'll get your China base of knowledge and then you'll be able to start to transfer that. What have been some of the biggest surprises and shocks and revelations for you since you've been here?
Well, I've only been here 2 days. And your show, especially even at your new show, I want it to come out now because I wish I had it before I got off the plane.
Yeah, how China works. Hey, this camera might see this right
Plug
here. This will be out. This episode with you and I is going to run in about 3 weeks from when we're recording this. This will have been out a week and a half.
Yeah, so let me rephrase that. So I'm really excited about your new podcast because I wish I had that podcast before I landed here because I couldn't buy food at KFC. I couldn't find myself my own taxi. I messed up my visa and delayed my flight 2 days and almost missed my conference. All those little things, which me as a world collaborator with 12 passports on my stamp just this year, I should know better. But China's different. Yeah. And that's why I think your show is so important because people need to know all the subtleties. Like, at least I knew to hand my business card, which is in simplified Chinese, by the way. Hand my business card 2 hands. Like, I knew that, but I couldn't buy a chicken sandwich.
Well, I'm sorry. We'll get you fed after this. I want to make sure that you're properly fed. For the sake of a little backstory, how did you get interested in the things you're interested in?
So I think that my purpose in life is to help people transform. So I see myself as a conduit to knowledge and personal transformation and making your life better. Some of the applications of that, how to build an online business, how to do marketing, how to control your internal dialogue, a lot of what Tony Robbins might teach, but a lot of people just that's not their flavor. They don't like Tony Robbins. They don't like Wayne Dyer or whatever. So I'm sort of moving into that more personal development space. How I got famous was because I learned one particular subset of psychology called handwriting analysis. And that means that I could look at your handwriting, your girlfriend's handwriting, employee, and I can say this person's an introvert, extrovert, hates men, has a problem with their dad, has an issue with all authority, and has a low self-esteem. Like all that's very specific.
It's like you know me.
There's like 141 traits, but it took me years to sort of understand what parts of that science was accurate and what was a bunch of crap. Because most books on that topic are 80% correct and 20% incorrect. But if you don't know which 20% is incorrect, you hate it. You're like, that doesn't make any sense. Donald Trump's this, Donald Trump's that. It's really useful. So when I figured out what was useful, I started writing books on that, but not on handwriting, on how to use handwriting to date, how to use handwriting to hire, how to use handwriting to, change your self-image, to stop being so sensitive. And it's because I changed my writing and I learned hypnosis and meditation and all this cool stuff when I was in my teenage years. I went ahead, applied it to myself. I'm a very happy and joyful person. Like, I'm very congruent. I've built a lifestyle. I'm not the richest person I know. I'm lucky I know some really rich and famous people, as you do too. Right. But I'm very happy. I'm wealthy, and I'm well balanced. And I want other people to have that level of freedom to literally make a bucket list and say, I can go around the world. Because I meet people all the time. They're like, man, I wish I had your life. And I'm like, why don't you? Like, it costs $400 round trip to come to Beijing.
Exactly.
Why aren't you in Beijing? Oh, I didn't know that. Like, because they never really believed they could do it, they never even looked at the prices. And so money and price is usually not what stops people. It's their internal belief system. So my mission with like our prison life design system on my books is to help people break through their belief systems, change their internal voices, and learn to be happy every day no matter what. So that's like really the bigger mission.
Awesome. And for the sake of anybody curious, I will, of course, include a lot of links in my show notes. And when we're toward the back end of this, I'll make sure I'm actually going to get you to give me some resources that I can share with people, so it's easy to find. But you have a couple of your books here.
So are you saying I have to give your books away to your listeners instead of actually sell them?
Well, if you wanted, I'm not telling you have to do that. I'm saying it might be nice. Maybe the first however many people that write you, is this for me? You're going to have to sign this.
I'll tell you what I'll do. That is for you. That's called The Success Secret of the Rich and Happy. It's not out yet, by the way. Okay. You have first 50 copies because they're on a ship. Oh, okay. I'll tell you what. There is a secret link on my website called BAGGETT.com. Mm-hmm. And if you click on the cover, I'll change that link from like the buy page to the free page.
Okay.
So you just opt in, boom, you get a free instant, like a downloadable. If you're an American, you get a PDF file, you pay for shipping, but I'll do that for your listeners. So just go to BartBaggett.com, click on any of the book cover, the magic question or that, and it'll you can have it free. How about that? Is that good enough?
That works for me. I love it.
And it's not a little book, dude. This is 450 pages.
This is a good doorstop right here.
Now this is I could
do some damage. I could take out an eye with this.
I will never write another book that's 450 pages. Like literally, the magic question is my bestseller. It's 84 pages.
Right.
Because you know what? People can read it in a couple of days and they go, oh my God, I got it. I can do this one thing. I can take this question, write a question on my bathroom mirror, boom, and then they wake up and they're happier. This is like 10 of the books.
Yeah.
But either way, I'll give it to you.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that. And I'm actually working on a book myself, which is essentially what I've learned on this crazy journey in China specifically, but also just in general in my life and what led me here. And so it's my version of kind of flattening the learning curve for China, which is what, again, this podcast is more personality and who are you and you're an interesting person. Let's talk about your story. And how China works is the one that, of course, where we're answering all these basic questions so that you don't show up at the airport and you don't have the right visa.
It reminds me of an analogy I was thinking today as I was walking back from my breakfast, which took me an hour and a half instead of 15 minutes. Because I looked at the map, which is not the Google Maps, a different map, right?
Sure.
So I basically wasted an hour and a half instead of 15 minutes because I didn't have a guide.
Right. You don't know where to cross the street, and it's not obvious if you don't know what you're looking at.
And then by the time I got to where I thought it was, McDonald's had moved. I can't believe they did it so fast. It's amazing, right? It's like fantastically cultural. So here's the point. If I'd have had a guide, I'd have saved myself an hour and a half. Now, nobody cares about an hour and a half and breakfast, right, at McDonald's. But think about writing a book or starting a business or a relationship or a marriage. Most people don't take advice. Most people don't pay for advice. They take advice from their dumb friends who watch football on Sunday. You know what? I charge $1,000 an hour for consulting. And for some people think that's insane. But guess what? I paid $1,000 an hour and I'm glad to do it. Because that $1,000 an hour, we're talking about $100,000 a month companies. Why would you not do that?
Right.
And so I position myself and I invite you and everybody listening, if you sell information or if you want to somehow write a book, be a consultant, be a speaker, as the guide and not the hero. And you may have heard this distinction because you're a filmmaker. So there's the hero's journey, you got this hero, this three act, and then
teach it. Yeah.
You're the hero, right? Yeah. Well, as a personal development teacher, what I realized is even though they want somebody that's really significant, what they really want is a Sherpa.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So if I help you make your book, I'm not your hero, Brendan. I'm your guide. And you know what? You pay a guide.
Yeah.
When I was during my speech, I paid 2 translators with me all the time, a film crew. Like I paid them in every conversation I had with people that I cared about. Mm-hmm. I had guides, get me there, get me back, translate it, and I was taken care of.
And then you were on your own trying to find KFC and it took an hour.
Right. Once my guides left, I'm an idiot. And I'm not an idiot. Right. So here's the point. If you're afraid to pay for a guide or you're a personal development person writing a book of yourself, instead of positioning yourself as the hero, position yourself as the guide. And that's people really want to have a guide, and it's a good investment.
Well, I think I've done, and I was talking to you, and look very candidly to people, and this show is not infotainment, right? But because, like, I want to play to the strengths of my guests. I'm fortunate to have a wide variety of guests, and I want to get the best out of people and what you do. So I respect your background, your accomplishments. I want this show is about how can Bart Baggett give like his condensed nugget of information for people who are trying to build an online business or trying to maximize things in their life. I would love to. I want to get into this with you.
Yeah.
So we don't have to know about your childhood and you played Little League and that's fine. If that's all you had to talk about, that's great. I have some interviews where that's the focus of the story. But you have a lot of things that you've managed to tick off, and I'd love to share some of that learning.
Yeah, I don't have one of those stories like Tony Robbins said he washed the dishes in his bathtub. Like, I don't have one of those stories. I was firmly middle class. Like, I wasn't a great student. But when I was 14, I met a guy named Dr. Walker. He taught me handwriting analysis. He looked at my handwriting and said, you got low self-esteem, you're a smart ass, you're stubborn. And I'm like, yeah, damn, you know me.
Did you need to see my handwriting?
Yeah, and literally, I don't think I've changed that much, except my self-esteem's better and my wit is better. Like, and I don't really care if you like me or not. I prefer you to like me, but if you don't, I'm not gonna lose sleep over it.
You say that like it's a bad thing.
It's one of the greatest traits to be fearless. Yeah, literally. And I mean, we made a CD last year, MP3, Fearless Living, because I think anxiety and fear is the root cause of most people's pain. And so I did a coaching session with an individual recently, and I think fear and expectations were the two things that cause people the most emotional upset. So think about that. You have a fear that things are going to work out, fear of an argument, fear of walking around your house because your mother-in-law is going to yell at you, a fear of failure, fear of success, fear of things not being perfect, or you have expectations, and when they're not met, you freak out. Someone's late, you don't get the job promotion. Right. So unrealistic expectations, or expectations in general, which is why I love sort of the Buddhist philosophy and some of the more Eastern philosophies, is they want to live in a detached environment.
Kind of the no minds.
Unattached.
Right.
That's really hard. Try that with your next girlfriend when you're in love, to be unattached, whether she sleeps with somebody else. Like, it's tough.
Yeah, that might be a tough one.
What I'm saying is, whatever example, take it to the extreme and go, can you really be unattached? Because I do want the outcome. I do want to get on the plane. I do want to, have a book on the bookshelf. So it's a really fine line. But if you can manage your expectations and be okay, like I missed my plane because of my visa issues, right?
Right.
And I was not upset. I was not happy. But I wasn't mad at somebody. I didn't blame anybody. I said, are you sure? And I kind of put my head down like 3 seconds. I'm like, I can't get on the plane.
Like, breathe,
she's like,
2, 3.
You can't get on the plane. I'm like, okay, who do I talk to? Like, immediately it was like, okay, how to repair this?
Like, what do you do? Yeah.
And like 5 minutes later, I'm in the Uber going to the embassy. But my point was, I got on the phone, I laughed, I called my friends. On the way back, I met some cool people in the other Uber, like new friends. And I thought, oh my God, I met some people I would never have met if I was on that plane.
Exactly.
And I reframed it instantly, say, this is a great thing.
Yeah, you left me like a series of funny messages. Hey, bad news, I'm going to be a little late, but good news is it's a great story and it's going to be funny. Okay, yeah, that's the right way to think about it.
But here's the thing. I mean, you missed your plane. You might not even make the keynote speech they're paying you for.
The thing you're coming here to do.
In front of 100, like, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, it was a little bit anxiety, like, I'm going to let a lot of people down.
Yeah.
And I didn't get upset. Now, think about people, dishes, miss your TV show.
Sure.
Remember your girlfriend yelling at you because you recorded over her Seinfeld episode? Or you watched the end of that movie and didn't wait for me? You brat! I've actually had that conversation. Like, I didn't even know you wanted to watch the end of the movie. And you're like, oh my God. So people get upset for no reason because they create big deals and little things. So that is essentially the message, is how do you control your brain?
Yeah.
And then I think the enemy is people's subconscious mind. It's all these little patterns that are running that they don't know where they came from. Their dad and their brother and their kid. And so you don't have to do past life regression. You don't have to do meditation or hypnosis. All those are useful. And there's a lot of tools.
Yeah.
Like, people think I'm a handwriting expert, which is true. But handwriting analysis is just a map, and it's a tool that I can look at your unconscious mind and within about 5 minutes go, Brendan, your biggest issue is you care what people think about you, and then you have a fear they may not like you, and then you hold back, where if you get rid of that fear, you take quicker action. And you go, really? Wow, can you change that? And I'm like, yeah, you can change it. Here's a couple ways to change it. So it condenses this traditional therapy conversation from 6 months to about an hour and a half. And then you go into sort of build mode. So what I really like to do is build things. And you're an artist like I am. We make movies and we make music and that kind of stuff. I like to build things. So I like to build people's lives. So the life design, which I call Prism Life Design, is about how do you build the ideal life? Like, I want to do what I'm doing right now. I want to travel the world. I want to make audience videos. I want to work from the beach in Thailand. I want to go to India. I can do my classes via Zoom. I can write books and meet with my publishers. Like, I'm literally living a life with complete mobility and freedom, and I'm making money. And I think that's an attractive proposition for most people. Timothy Ferriss made lots of money from the 4-hour work week.
Absolutely.
Like that dream really appeals to people. And it makes me sad. And I meet a lot of people in the world who say, man, I really admire what you do, but I've got a real job and I've got responsibilities. And I can't do that. And it would never work for me.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that's a limiting belief system.
Yeah. It's unfortunate. And, finding my own way through the forest with this has been the challenge, I mean, I've had the downs as well as the ups, but you kind of get what you pay for. And I've paid to be able to sit here and have this conversation in Beijing, in my crazy $1 million studio apartment.
One of the and it literally is $1 million.
This is insane. I rent, but that was a thing we were talking as a frame of reference of like real estate. Bart's like, really? I mean, it's a nice place, but it's a tiny little. It's like, really? Like, yeah. Welcome to Beijing.
Yeah. So interesting. So one of the things you stumbled upon there is values, and you didn't use that word, but one of the first things we do in like our life design assessment is we figure out what emotion do you value the most? Yeah. And when you can figure this out, it completely changes the map of your life because most people don't know what they value the most. Mm. They'll say God, they'll say family, but that's bull. They don't. If you sit around Sunday and watch football all day, you value sports, you value entertainment, you value family time, right? And so that little exercise of sort of what's important to you about a career, I can ask you right now, I can just list it and you get an aha. So let me ask you a question. What's important to you about a career?
Being able to live on my own terms.
On your own terms. What else is important to you about a career?
Being able to feel like I am heard and using the best of myself, and that's what's being utilized.
So I heard two long things answer. There. Yeah. I heard heard, which means like you want people to listen to you and acknowledge you, or you want to sort of use your best skills and make a difference. Which one is it? Is it both?
I would say, it's both. It's both. I mean, I'd say the heard is that leads to this. Obviously, that leads to writing music, playing music, performing music, writing films, making films. So yeah.
So you want an audience?
Yeah, I was an extremely introverted kid. I mean, I was in a shell. The joke is my mom used to tell people, we spent the first few years trying to get Brendan to talk and the rest of it trying to get him to shut the hell up occasionally. But yeah, I was extremely introverted as a kid and moved a lot. So had that kind of life where I was in that kind of a shell.
So I got a question. If you could be heard, but you didn't live your life on your own terms, would you be happy?
No.
If you live your life on your own terms but not be heard, would you be happy?
No. Okay,
if you had to choose one or the other, which one would be the most important?
Own terms.
Oh, no. So live on own terms, be heard and be listened to.
Yeah.
And then the third one was?
I would say autonomous, being able to... I mean, own terms is really, repetitive.
Thing.
It's really the same
thing.
I
think the third one would be feeling useful and feeling like you're doing.
That's what I said. Yeah. That's
right. So seriously,
feeling like I'm not just taking up space.
You're using your special skills.
Exactly.
You're producing something.
Yeah. Doing something that only I can do, at least in my own way. Maybe there are people who do the same thing, but it's like my
uniquely contributing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So what I did, by the way, that's normally like an hour conversation. We just did it in like 4 minutes.
There you go.
So what you do is you drill down these words and vocabulary words, and you at home do the same thing. Like you could have your buddy ask the question, but I'll give it to you specifically, and it's in the Rich and Happy book. I think it's in chapter 4. Okay. But it's like, what's important about a career?
Yeah.
What else is important to you? You throw out all these words like adventure, security, freedom, teamwork. Like you didn't say teamwork. You didn't say security.
I'm an army of one.
You know why you didn't say security?
Yeah.
Because you have the guts to move to Beijing with no security. You're not in an apartment in Van Nuys at a real job. I'm saying people.
Security's the thing I've had the least of in my life.
Well, yeah. And
so I'm just used to it.
We
now.
Paid a heavy price to not have that, and I'm the same way. So freedom's so important to me.
Yeah, it hasn't been comfortable, and just I'm not trying to
comfort wasn't
be Pollyanna about it.
Comfort wasn't one of your values either. But I guarantee people listening, they think comfort is really important about a career. Now you can do the same elicitation for relationships, the same for spirituality, but career's what's most important. And here's what's interesting, and this will literally be worth your entire 1 hour listening to this program. In fact, I will double your money back if it's not worth the entire investment.
And it's already free, so we'll give you extra free hour of your life. You'll live an hour longer, courtesy of BART. Go.
So here's what I learned almost 20 years ago from a guy named Tad James. Tad James was a student of NLP, timeline therapy, really interesting man, still living. And he did this value elicitation. I was 23, 24 years old. I just published one of my books. And he did this exercise, and mine was like freedom and creativity and making a difference and all these things. I mean, look how smart I am. I'm just going to make a difference. I'm such an evolved human being at 23, right? He's like, if making money is not in your top 4 values, you're probably having financial struggles. And I went, huh. And I was broke. I mean, I had a book out. People thought I was broke. And I was like, well, that's interesting, but I really want to make a difference. I want to be creative. And then I realized that at every moment in your life, you can't be at 2 places at once. Like, I can't be here and be at the Great Wall.
Exactly.
I can't be here and in LA. I had to make a choice of where I spend my time.
Yeah.
So emotionally, you have to make a choice of where you spend your energy. And that career is either security or freedom. It's going to be adventure or it's going to be something else. And so making money may not always be, in your case,
it's definitely important because I don't have any,
It's
I've got no inherit. I've got no cushion. I mean, I am the cushion.
Well, my point
I'm
is
well
this.
cushioned, but
My point is that you want to live your life on your own terms.
Right.
And you want to make money.
Yeah.
Sometimes you got to make money and not live your life on your own terms.
This is true.
Now, that feels like a compromise. But of those 3 values, which you really, really love, at some point, you got to shift money into being above one of those. And I know you have. I know you've worked on movie sets for 4 weeks and not loved it, but you're like, you know what, I got to pay.
Yeah.
And so what happens is
that's about a third of my year, the way it kind of works out usually. Yeah.
But that's not a bad thing. Because making money is important.
It's a great trade-off.
So at home, if you're financially struggling, you need to make money important, and you have to voluntarily go, you know what? I'm going to delay being creative. Right. I'm going to delay making a difference until I'm wealthy and I give to charity.
The problem is a lot of people delay it forever. I didn't mean to interrupt you. That's what I see is the problem with creativity.
Because they're not even aware that making money is a choice, and making it important, you have to sacrifice something else. So that one conversation about values and how you move money up and down the value conversation completely revolutionized my life. So I started saying no to all these projects. I started saying no to things that were just vanity projects. I started saying no to people who wanted to pick my brain.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is business. Like, as a friend, I'll help all you want. But if it's a business, pay me.
Exactly.
And you know what? People don't like you when you do that.
Well, and this is another, I've had almost no one on the podcast who I wouldn't want to just sit down anyway with.
Right.
But that has been that's been a bonus of this, is it's let me bring in people who want to get together for something general, and I kind of like to do it. And I think, there's an interesting story there with this person. Let's get you on the mic, because in terms of hours in the day, right, this takes a lot of effort. And so it's easier for me to do this, as hard as it is to schedule sometimes and to do all the things that come with this. But it's easier for me to get somebody I really want to talk to in here, instead of let's just go sit and that conversation goes in our ears, but then it goes out the window at the Starbucks.
Well, there's another advantage for it. And I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you have a course on how to do a podcast.
I do, the complete podcasting course with Brendan Davis.
Okay, so I've not listened to it yet, but I'll tell you the biggest benefit to having a podcast. And it's the same reason that I get to hang out with movie stars, and you do too, and titans of business, and people like me, and I'm sitting next to Nolan Bushnell, who found Atari, because people like me. But they get to know me through a medium of status. And so I've been on the Howard Stern show and Larry King show, all that creates a certain amount of status for me.
Right.
If we met at a film festival, if we met at a movie lot, if we met on a TV show, there's a status that comes with it.
Right.
Podcast gives you instant status. And so when I'm talking to you, I make all the assumptions that you're successful, you're cool, you've got it, you're talented. It's very different than sending me email saying, let me buy you coffee and pick your brain. Because I don't want to go to coffee with a stranger.
Exactly.
But I will read his book and say, oh my God, I've never met Tim Ferriss. Let's get him on my show.
Yeah.
So for you, it's a brilliant strategy. And by the way, it doesn't have to be you or me. Even if you don't have 7 books, even if you're not as important as Brendan, you can start a podcast.
Boy, thank you.
And you can invite people of significance. And a lot of them will take it. I did 1,600 radio interviews.
I know, it's
in
crazy.
the middle of Dakota and out in the nowhere. But 10 years later, those hosts are in Los Angeles and LA, and they grew up and they became significant radio and TV figures.
Exactly.
And I had those relationships, formed them. So it's a very good strategy for you, and you can have deep conversations and begin to have mutual respect. So it's good. And if you haven't bought his course, go buy it. Go buy it. Go buy it.
Thank you for that. And that's a totally unpaid but much appreciated plug, Bart. I seriously appreciate that. Let's actually talk about this a little specifically. This is some deep game psychology advice that you're giving, and I appreciate how useful this is. It's it's strategy as well as tactics. So you've only been in China a couple of days, as you were saying, and not to put you too much on the spot, but knowing what you know now and knowing what you know about traveling in general, what would you do differently? What would you advise people to do when before they come here?
Well, I would actually study.
Yeah.
I know that sounds stupid that I didn't study, but I was so busy getting it all together with my life, and I'm sure a lot of people are.
Right.
And because I travel so much and I always have people hosting me, I got lazy.
Yeah.
And so I thought, like my mother's like, I don't know how you go from an airport. Like, where are you staying? How you get from the airport? Like, how are you going to get from the airport to the hotel? I'm like, Mom, we have Uber. Like, you don't need to know these things. You're 72. Just let it go.
I'm going to figure it out.
She's like, oh, I'm so worried. And I couldn't try. So here's the thing. Because I travel so much in the Western world and we have Uber, it didn't occur to me that I didn't have an Uber account,
right.
that my credit cards don't work at KFC, that I couldn't find an ATM to get cash. Luckily, someone picked up in the airport with my host. They took care of me.
Right.
I'm used to it. But guess what? I wasn't always hosted. I didn't always have somebody there. So at 10 o'clock, I'd go out by myself. I couldn't feed myself. Like I literally had like bars, like protein bars for dinner the first night because I was too stupid to get money. And then some nice guy at KFC bought my dinner because he felt sorry for me after trying to install
saw you trying your
Alipay and all that. And I was like, oh, what a moron. I go, yeah, that guy's a real self-help guru. He's brilliant. That guy can't remember to get his own money, but he's 7 books. He's a really bright guy. The other thing I would do is I would literally get a course, and I started the research. Here's the 10 things you got to go. Here's the 10 apps you need, right? Here's a VPN. Like I started it, but I just didn't finish it. Yeah. There wasn't one guide. It was a little overwhelming. So I would literally like, what do you need to know? What apps need to be on your phone?
Right.
How do you need to pay for stuff? Like I just did like 10 minutes of research, and being the arrogant person that I am, and I always land on my feet like a cat, I'm like, I don't need to worry. I don't speak a word of Chinese.
Right.
Dumb. Like I need to know like toilet, ATM machine, some of the fundamentals, and anyway, I know I'm embarrassing myself because you asked me a question.
I appreciate the candor, and actually, it's helpful to me because you've seen the outline for what we're going to do with How China Works here, and the shows to start rolling out as this show is out. But that gives me great information for how I will tailor some future episodes when we get to some of these nuts and bolts things.
Well, especially to people that have traveled the rest of the world and feel like they're really confident.
Right.
If someone that is nervous because they've never been out of the country, they're going to do the research because they've anxiety. I don't have any anxiety.
Exactly.
Like I'm overconfident.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, wow, no one can tell me where the toilet is. This could be a problem in about 12 minutes.
Yeah.
Like this is terrible.
Counting down.
It's like little things like that.
Oh my God.
As far as business goes, because I'd been to Hong Kong and Taiwan, I had some understanding of protocol. Mm-hmm. I'm a speaker. I've spoken to audiences. They've translated for me. But here's what I did really smart is because I'm a speaker, and if you're coming here on business, they're not going to speak English. At least some of the major decision makers, they won't speak English.
Right.
So the major people,
or they won't use it if they speak it there.
So the people that I was most wanting to influence and connect with did not speak English. So my entire relationship was with their assistant, their secretary, their driver, right?
Right.
Well, that's not the relationship you want. So I literally, for my speech, did a rehearsal, which I hardly ever rehearse, right? Did a rehearsal, turned all the slides into Chinese. Mm-hmm. So all the presentation was in Chinese. I had 2 interpreters, both translate it and have a printout of word for word. Now, I improv a lot, so I was hoping they could do that. So the speech went off splendidly, only because I over-prepared for that 1 hour. I'm drastically unprepared for the rest of the 5 days here.
Well, actually, if you don't mind getting a little granular, I would love if you would share with the audience what you did, because this is the sort of thing that comes up. Like you just give an overview of the length of the speech and how much prep time it took and how you kind of had to do that.
Yeah, so I had some friends in the film business, kind of like you. Some friends of friends. Basically, networking. Who do you know? Who do you know? Who do you know? Mm-hmm. I got one friend to say, and I got to get a translator. And so one of my friends here that's a filmmaker says, you know what? Let's just Google translators. And she just went on the local Google, whatever that is here, and we picked a translation company. And we paid them a deposit, which was impossible because I couldn't get them any money. So check this out. I'm like, yeah, I'll pay $500, no problem. She's like, okay. And on my own pocket, and I'm like, she's never met me, right? Mm-hmm. Like we're mutual friends, but I'm not going to ask her to pay $5 on her pocket. So then we got to get the company to send her money. Like, hey, we have this stranger asking for money. Like the whole thing was complicated because you can't get money in and out of the country. Little things which I didn't plan ahead for. So when we finally got the translation company money, we auditioned them.
Okay.
And literally all of them failed.
Yeah.
I was like,
pretty disappointing.
So the script says, hey, I'm Bart Baggett. I grew up in Dallas, Texas, right? So I said, oh, great, translate me. I'm Bart Baggett. I live in Los Angeles. I ride a motorcycle. He goes, my name is Bart Baggett. And this is in Chinese. I live in Dallas, Texas. And she's like, he's just looking at the piece of paper. Yeah. So we didn't hire any of those 3 people. Yeah. They were their A-list, like their A. Their A-list people were terrible.
There may be a good one here, not to tangent. I've never found a good one. It's an ongoing.
So here's one of the things for you if you really want to service this community.
Yeah,
that's the biggest problem I had.
Yeah,
And if you had a company or people you relied on, that would be an amazing connection for you. The ones that out there aren't work. So we lucked out. Friends of friends, fellow producer, fluent in English, lived in Minnesota, did her a favor, did me a favor. Like, oh, we know the same people. Like, lucky. And they spent 20 hours. Between the two of them, 20 hours going through word for word. So most people don't have a script, right? They didn't transcribe it. I gave them everything I'm going to say. So if you had a business meeting, you say, here's all the points of my presentation. I recorded it. I'm sitting in my hotel in Miami when I was on a client. I had like half a day. Recorded it, microphone, sent it to my transcriber. She transcribed it. By the way, you don't have this Upwork. I mean, all these transcribers, super easy to do that. Then had it translated into Chinese. And then they basically went through word for word. And there's a lot of hard words. I talk about psychology, forensics, John Benet Ramsey, all these murders like bodies and forensic terms and graphical therapy and then neuropathway, synaptic pathway. These are not common phrases.
Exactly.
And so, but this audience was an audience that knew that. So it's an industry-specific audience. So it took them a long time. When we got there, luckily, between these two people, I always had someone at my side. And I paid them. And I wasn't shy about it. The conference would not pay. They're like, we'll give you a translator. I'm saying, no, I've been down that road before.
Yeah.
and by the way, if you've never had translation problems, here's the deal. I was in Poland. And I was one of their speakers at this Polish forensic conference. I've never been to Poland before. Lovely country, just lovely. It's like a little slice of this pre-Soviet Union, just beautiful in the summertime. And we had the headphones on listening to the translator. And I'm not making this up. This woman gave a lecture on the handwriting and forensic aspects of homosexuals or transvestites.
Okay.
It was some really interesting, bizarre topic. Like, whoa, I can't wait for this, right? Here's what I heard in my headphones. Handwriting, sexuality.
Oh my gosh.
Female.
Oh no.
Handwriting.
Oh, no.
Like literally all he did is repeat the summary of what was in the brochure. And I'm like, oh my God, I want my money back. So after 2 days of this, they fired him and got somebody else because the promoter didn't know that the translator was that bad. So we spent all this money coming here. I gave this great speech and people probably heard Larry King, CNN, handwriting. Like it was awful.
There was that crazy story from a few years ago. Was it somebody claiming to do sign language for President Obama?
Yeah, I heard that.
That was like total BS. Just doing some kind of freestyle, improvised. And it was like total BS. And like, how are they this close to the president?
And the president probably got blamed for that, you know? So here's the point.
Oh, gosh.
You have to take full responsibility for this. And so I had in my own pocket, paid for people to escort me, own pocket translated, own pocket, and they were kind of upset with me. They were just like, what's wrong with our translators? Like they were offended by it. But here's the thing. It's my time.
Exactly.
It's my speech. And even though it cost me negative money to come here and speak because of all these expenses, it's worth it because I had my own film crew.
Yeah.
I had my own translators. And guess what? My message was crystal clear because we had all this rehearsal time. Now take that and imagine in your first meeting. You're trying to negotiate in Canton Fair, negotiating your first thing. Like one of my buddies, and I can't tell the whole story because it's all, anyway. Yeah. He has this wonderful product. He was on Shark Tank. He like literally has this kick butt product. He got him made in China. His broker basically pocketed $600,000.
Out of the
$600,000. So he's got like shipments coming in and all of them are breaking. And really, it wasn't the manufacturer; it was the middleman that he trusted in China. The
middleman thing it's another one of those things. We go, yeah.
So here's this guy with like $1 million of back orders on his website. And he can't fulfill them because the ship won't get there. And the ship gets there, everything breaks. And it was the middleman that ended up, he had to fire him. So he's now 3 years behind in his business plan because he made one wrong decision. He hired the wrong Chinese guy.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's typical of the culture, but it is typical of you not knowing the culture, not knowing the communication, not having a translator you can trust. Like I had 2 translators for a reason. Because I wanted them to check each other.
That's true. That's a very good deep game strategy, and I've done the same thing. And in business meetings here, you always want to bring your own translator, and it's not even a trust. It's trusting that someone has your back because the person, even if the person in the meeting who is provided is spectacular,
right?
If they don't work for you,
their agenda,
they're not necessarily making sure that you look and sound your best and that your point. They're not rounding it up in your favor if you need help making your point translate.
Yeah, and of course because I had 2, they were also working there and saying, hey, by the way, that guy that pretends he loves you so much. he was kind of talking crap about behind your back.
That's great insight.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, they can be watching interactions and they've got their ear to the ground.
Because you don't speak the language.
Totally,
and I know other cultures maybe like that, but if you're doing business and you're doing millions of dollars of trade and ships, I mean, I get my books printed in India. I could get them printed in China. So I understand like when you're spending thousands of dollars. And my publisher in India, I've known him for 21 years. I've been to his house. I know his kids.
Sure.
Like it took years to cement that relationship.
Yeah.
Now, I could probably get them cheaper in China. But guess what? The relationship is so important. I know it's going to work. But that took years to create. So if you're brand new, you've got to build those relationships. And I think that there's a lot of things I know there's a lot of things I don't know. But as far as business goes, how much time you spend talking business, when you talk personal, I don't know any of that, and I need to learn. And I'm sure that your show is going to teach me that, right?
Well, that's what, exactly. We are going to really specifically be talking about how to overcome the misunderstandings that you're going to have coming, especially from Western culture. And one of the early episodes that will have actually just run after right before this episode that you're hearing now, so you can find it, is about high context culture. And China is a high context culture. And the snapshot of that is that in the West, we're a low context culture. If I need something from Bart, I say, hey, Bart, and yeah, Brennan, can you loan me $3,000? I'm waiting on a client to pay me. I've got this big expense and it's tomorrow. And I just, it's going to save me from more strenuous labor. He's like, yeah, okay, sure, no problem. And in China, you sort of seemingly dance around it a bit. And there's unspoken things that come into play and you don't get directly to it. It's seen as very rude to be direct. And understanding that that's a super rushed way to say something that's more nuanced. And that illustrates the problem. To give you a great high context example would take me like 3 or 4 minutes to kind of lay it out. So you have to understand that. And relationship building, like with your publisher in India, that is so crucial because relationships take a long time to build here. And there are a lot of historical reasons why, cultural reasons why, it's the comfort level, and you just cannot rush. This is the long time. This is the analogy of the bull and the papa bull and the baby bull on the top of the hill and the cows in the valley. This is that, where you have to take your time. You got to walk down the hill. So before I let you go, I decided that I'm going to be brave and do something with you, and the bravery part will become self-evident in just a moment. I'm going to let Bart analyze my handwriting. And I say it's brave because if you've never seen me write, I look like a schizophrenic writing a ransom note, I think. I have the worst handwriting of any adult I know. And there's a long story reason why. I actually learned to write really, really young, and the excuse is that I formed bad muscle memory. That's probably BS at this point because I'm 50, right? But nonetheless, we're going to do the super quick version of this. And if you're just listening to the podcast, you think, wow, this is exciting. Actually, I think it'll be entertaining just to listen to, but we're also shooting video for this. And so there's going to be a little bonus video clip included with this episode. You can see the wretchedness that I'm going to write. I don't want to set the bar too high, but Bart, what do we do here?
What I'll do also is I'll circle sort of the primary traits.
Okay.
I've done this hundreds of times on radio, and they're like, "Oh, it doesn't have to be. It have to be TV thing."
Sure.
So if you're
this
at home,
is the short version.
You just write the sentence, and you can analyze your handwriting. And even if you don't get it all from the podcast, there's a couple of resources online that are free. At the Handwriting University website and the handwritingwizard.com. You can literally analyze your own handwriting.
Okay.
It'll create a report.
And I'll put all these links in the show notes too. So
don't freak out that you don't have me analyze your writing, because some of it you can get. So here's what you do. You write down, Dear Bart, you and your silly monkey do not go home to the zoo.
Okay. Do I print it? Because I don't just, what's better for you?
Better if you write cursive, even if you say, I never write cursive anymore. I've been done it in years. I
don't write anything.
I like a retarded chicken. Please, here's my excuses. Just write cursive
Dear,
if you can.
It'll be a, wow. Okay.
And if you really do write like an epileptic chicken, or you feel like you're mentally slow, then print it, and then I can kind of balance the difference.
Well, I'll do my best. So, Dear Bart,
do both, since
you and your silky, you're seeing.
No, that's not bad. Yeah, Dear Bart, you and your silly monkey.
You and your silly monkey
do not go home from the zoo. And so, just while he's writing that, the backstory is my first book was on handwriting analysis, and I've been on 1,600 radio shows relating to doing handwriting analysis of Howard Stern. So that's why he's asked me. So I'm one of the best in the world at this skill. Now, what I did is I write books on people about the unconscious mind, but it's still a useful skill. If you look at your handwriting and you have one of these, 6 hell traits or fears or success traits, your life is easier.
Okay.
So you get to do it. Okay, you signed your name.
Yeah, I gave a little love bee at the end there.
Okay, and so what I'm looking at is I'm looking at literally the way he forms the writing. And so certain letters, like the letter T, and I'll hold up the camera, it looks like a pyramid, like the towers of Egypt. Like they didn't teach you how to write a T that looks like a pyramid, right?
Like the T for Bart?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Like it's a pyramid.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, that is primary trait of stubbornness. Which means once you get made up your mind, you don't want to be confused with the facts. You can't make up his mind. If you fight you're just going to get more fighting. So the way that you change your mind is to do a very roundabout approach to the stubbornness. So it's a very childlike quality, but also a lot of people think stubbornness is also persistence. And you have that trait too. So here in the T-bar, we don't pick up your pen. That's persistence. So they confuse stubborn and persistence because both of them are kind of trenching in. But persistence is the gas that gets you past hurdles. Stubborn is the defensiveness to not be wrong. So one of them's really great. One of them's a little bit childish.
Okay.
No offense.
It's okay.
None taken, right?
None taken. I'm sitting down. Hit me.
Now, this says not N-O-T.
That's in theory, that's the word not.
But it looks like N-U-T.
It does.
Because you don't close the top of your...
Or rut or something.
You don't close the top of your O's. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Wow.
6 of your 7 O's have no close on it. It means they're open.
Okay.
So that literally in the primary dictionary is talkativeness. So this O is like your mouth. Love to talk.
All right.
Now, you told me the story 30 minutes ago to your mother, but I would have said the same whether or not you told me that.
Got it.
And that's the thing. All these traits are very specific and they have a meaning. What makes me really good compared to an amateur is I take all these primary traits and you mix them together and you get like a whole personality trait. You know, like a narcissist or a this, then you're not, by the way, any of those. But that's one reason it takes a while to master it because anybody can sort of get the basic level 1 course and get the primary traits. So your little sense of criticism, you have a lot to prove. And so you have this insecurity about yourself to sort of be recognized and to over exceed because at the root, Brendan, you somehow don't feel as worthy as you think you should by now in your life. Doesn't mean you don't feel good about yourself, but like you compare yourself to where you think you should be and you're coming up short.
I've got a lot I want to do, you know. I feel like I'm still the beginner's mind thing. It's like I feel like I have so much to do still. Like I feel like I'm still just getting started in a lot of ways.
This B here is a sign of genius, and I'll tell you because that's how I write my B. So it must be really good.
I love it.
It must be great. No, that's a good ego, a sense of self-confidence. You got this big loop there, which is desire for recognition as well as responsibility.
Okay, let's show that to the camera first. There.
So
Mark.
the B there. And we can always screenshot this later. But that little loop there I first saw in country music and musicians, the desire for fame, which is a desire for recognition, which is not a shallow thing. It means you want status. It means you want people to sort of, you want to be responsible for helping other people. And then finally, the T, which is really, really long, that's enthusiasm.
Oh, okay.
And the pointiness is sarcasm. So you're enthusiastically sarcastic.
Again, it's like you know me. It's like you know me. Bart, a funny thing, this is fascinating, and I know this is the super hot take on this, the super quick read, and we're going to have the links where people can kind of learn more and enjoy this, because we are also fighting. We could talk for hours, and we will when we stop recording, but we have to actually sort of wrap up and land the plane because there's construction I just bought us a few more minutes of quiet. Where can people find you? Give me the short version of that, and then I'll put all the links in the show notes for folks.
Yeah, so the best way to do it is go to BartBaggett.com, BARTBAGGETT. I think it's the only one that comes up on the search engines. Just click on one of the 2 books on that homepage. It doesn't say free book here because this is sort of a secret thing. Click on that, download the book. That'll get you not only the book, but get on our email list, and you'll start to get to know us. The other place, if you want to learn about the handwriting analysis, is the same website or handwritinguniversity.com. Look for the free self-test, and literally they can analyze their own handwriting. It generates a report for you.
Wow. Okay.
So both of those gets on the email list. We sell this great content. We got all these videos. Basically, you can learn this for under $100. You can start to learn it. Obviously, there's higher level prices, a whole lot of free stuff. But come to a seminar, jump on one of our live trainings. We've got webinars, all this kind of stuff. Because here's what I found. When you're selling information, just like in Chinese relationships, you have to build a relationship first. Yeah. So I have to give away insane amount of content this year that 15 years ago I sold.
Right.
So I literally am giving away most of my best material, hoping that they will like me, have a relationship, open our emails, follow us on Facebook. Yeah. And that's the way business is done. Yeah. Just like in China. Exactly. You have to build a relationship first. So yeah, there's a lot of great stuff there at BartBaggett.com. And if you like what you see, send Brent an email and tell me he was a cool guest.
Awesome. Bart, thanks so much, man.
It's been great, buddy.
Likewise, man. Thank you. All right, that's the show this week. Don't forget to find out more about Bart or me or any of the things we talked about. You can normally check the blog post. The blog post is not up as of now. I'm actually changing how I do this. So please search those internets for Bart Baggett. That last name has 2 G's and 2 T's. And there's a plethora of information about him. I will add a blog post with all the links and photos just as soon as I can. But between the time difference and whatnot, we are not in sync for me to get that blog post out right this second as this drops. If you're hearing this in the future, it's probably right there. Just go to crazyinagoodway.com for all the awesomeness. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next week.